They called her a Deathworlder, but to most of the academy she was just the Earth girl, small, dark-haired, always sitting alone in the back of the mess hall, eyes quietly tracking everything like a predator behind glass. Her name was Lyra Hale, a final-year cadet at the prestigious Merrick's Defense Academy. It was supposed to be an honor that she'd been accepted at all. The Merricks prided themselves on being the premier military force in the sector, genetically enhanced, bred on a low-gravity paradise world, skin like living armor, twice the size of an average human. They were apex soldiers by design. Or so they liked to remind themselves. Lyra kept to herself. She did her drills, aced the tactical sims, ran the obstacle courses in half the academy's record time. But she didn't strut or gloat. She just stayed seated, watching. And that made the others nervous. Especially Cadet Knight Vorin Drax, son of a high-ranking Merrick's warlord. Vorin was a giant even by Merrick's standards. Over 7 feet of muscle, armored hide studded with ceremonial bone spikes. He hated that this fragile-looking human scored higher than him in almost every combat sim. He hated the whispers that followed him in the barracks. The Earth girl would break him in half. So Vorin decided to prove a point. The mess hall that night buzzed with the usual chatter. Lyra sat alone at her corner table, pale hands wrapped around a mug of something that steamed and smelled like earth tea. She didn't flinch when Vorin's shadow fell over her. Deathworlder, Vorin rumbled, voice dripping contempt. You think you're better than us? Lyra didn't even glance up. No, she sipped her tea. I think you're making a scene. The surrounding cadets went silent. Vorin's lip curled back, revealing serrated teeth. He slammed his clawed hand on her table, splintering the edge. Get up, he snarled. Face me like a warrior. Lyra's dark eyes rose to meet his. Calm. Cold. She tilted her head. No. Murmurs rippled through the hall. She refused him. Vorin's pride cracked. He grabbed her by the front of her academy tunic, lifting her partway out of her chair. Stand. Up. Lyra exhaled slowly, her feet dangling inches above the floor. And for a moment it looked like she'd let him drag her across the hall, like the human would show her species' proper place beneath the apex predators. Then something shifted. Her eyes hardened, flat and merciless as a razor edge. In a blink, Lyra's hands snapped up, locking onto Vorin's wrist. She twisted her body, pivoting her hips under his arm, and with a single fluid motion she pulled him off balance. His massive frame toppled forward, straight into the reinforced table's edge. There was a sickening crack. The Merricks gasped in shock as Vorin howled, scrambling to push himself up, except Lyra was still seated. She didn't rise. She just planted her heel against his knee and drove it sideways, hyperextending the joint. Vorin screamed again, but before he could lunge at her, Lyra struck him with a knife-hand jab to the base of his spine. The crack was louder this time. Vorin collapsed in a twitching heap, his roar cut short as his entire lower body went limp. He hit the floor with a thud that echoed off the mess hall walls. Silence. Dozens of Merrick's cadets stared in horror at the predator they'd thought untouchable, broken, whimpering on the ground. And Lyra Hale? She stayed seated. She calmly lifted her mug, took another sip, and then finally looked at the circle of witnesses. I didn't want to get up, she said, voice level as stone. Next time, pick someone softer. Security medics rushed in, hauling Vorin away on a grav stretcher. Word spread before the blood was even cleaned off the tiles. Merricks who'd laughed at the tiny Deathworlder now crossed the hall when they saw her coming. They spoke her name with equal parts fear and awe. In the Academy archives, Vorin's file was marked with a single line. Paralyzed in non-sanctioned combat with Cadet Lyra Hale. No charges were filed. The footage was archived, sealed, and later used in hand-to-hand training courses as an example of what happens when you forget what a Deathworlder really is. She was small. She was quiet. She preferred to stay seated. But the moment she rose, even just enough to twist your spine, reminded the galaxy why you never, ever corner a human.